And we're live.
How's it, bro? How you doing?
I'm great. I'm doing great. And yourself? Good?
I'm good. I'm good. It's doesn't it
That's
feel a bit
right.
strange doing this online because you're not in the same city?
Yeah. But how's that side treating you?
Joburg's good, man. Joburg's good. I think Joburg's
Mhm.
amazing, and we'll unpack that. I don't know if it's an episode or it will come off from the conversations we're gonna have on this Tough Talks platform. But Joburg's been good. It feels amazing to be back. And how's Cape Town?
Has been good as well. We just getting started, here during the holidays everything stops, but I think it's picking up. Yeah.
What are the
You're
what are the
already in
digital
February,
nomads?
right?
What are the digital nomads saying?
They- yeah, they're taking over, but it's always good to meet people from other places.
That's a very diplomatic answer. It's a very diplomatic answer. But let's get right into it, man. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, in a way, why Project Y and Tough Talks comes after the SACAP webinar that we did. Um, I don't know if you want to reflect on that for a bit before we get into today's topic because that was a massive
Mm.
one. I think that webinar
Yeah.
was massive.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good starting point because after the webinar, a lot of things happen. We created more content. We had interesting discussions. Some things were in the public domain, some others were not. And I think one of the best things to reflect on was the feedback and people's engagement after the webinar. So
Mm,
we had a lot of input on what people say that who should we have these conversations with
mm,
and what should the conversations be about, like the topics, the most pressing ones. And I think that's gold. I think that's where our focus should be on. And so that was during the webinar, and afterwards we still receive a lot of feedback. But there was something that just kept on going to the end of the year, which was after the webinar, people just come to me and probably to you as well and say, "Oh, wait, you one of those guys from the webinar, right?"
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, I love it, and yeah, I'm so glad like that we're talking about this because there's this and that happening. So yeah, and there were other. I also started seeing like a lot of initiatives on other like more dialogue, more conversations around some of the same topics, and a little bit of action as well, if we can say so. The momentum is still there. The conversations are still going. People are actually thinking or set up like projects, things that they want to launch this year based on the conversations that we initiated.
Yeah,
So I think that's awesome. That's what we're looking for. How
yeah.
about you? How do you feel about
No, it was a dope one, man. It was a good one. Also, shout out to SayCap for that
it?
opportunity. Shout out to Akil as
Yeah,
well for setting that up. I think it was massive. Shout out to Kalen also who was involved. Kikelo as
yeah.
well. All the guests we had: Black Sable, Michaela. Who's the other gent again from
Ruan,
Ruan? Yes, Ruan
yeah, Ruan,
Erasmus.
yeah.
I hope we're not forgetting anyone else. But
Mayank from
Mayank,
yeah,
yes.
and
So
and Dr. Sachab as well.
yeah. Of course, of course, of
Yeah.
course. So yeah, it was a
Mm,
big one. It was a big one, and we'll have a link
right,
on
indeed.
the description for people to check that out. They should also
Yeah.
look out for clips that
Mhm.
we're gonna add on our social media. But today we're here to talk about this pod. This is kind of like the official introductory episode of Tough Talks, and we're basically just gonna go into, man, like what tough talks are we having with ourselves. And I mean, for context, we can
Mm,
do like
good
a
one.
quick two-liner about who we are. If you don't already know, my name is Tuto Vilagazi, and please don't give them the long CV. They can go to your LinkedIn for the long CV. No long CVs. But
I'll
my name
give
is
it short.
my name
Give it
my name is
short.
Tuto Vilagazi. And I recently graduated in with a Bachelor of Architectural Studies from the University of Cape Town.
Recently,
So
It was 2 years ago.
Yeah, it
Sorry for
was 2 years ago, man.
interrupting.
It was 2 years ago. But so under like CCAP, like sort of categories or whatever you want to call it, I'm a candidate architectural technologist. So I think that and us introducing each each other and to you will give you context about where we are at in our architectural journey, and why it's also important for you to understand that is it'll help you understand how we frame things. But yeah, graduated 2 years ago, like Elohim was saying, and I've been in practice for it's my second year now. And I'm soon going to be going back for post grad. So what about you, brother?
Wonderful. Elohim, for those who don't know, from Angola, been based in Cape Town since 2020. Studied at CPUT, did an advanced diploma, until last year. And yeah, I've been around exploring, doing different things and keeping it short. I think the only perhaps the most relevant has been exploring alternative architectural business models within the architectural space with having launched a design competitions platform called Nana.
You see, you're
And
dropping
yeah,
CVs. You're
and
dropping
the
CVs.
rest,
You're
yeah,
doing shameless
the
plugs
rest, the
right
rest
now.
they'll find out along the way. Yeah.
um, but yeah, so what's let's I want us to speak about the tough talks that we're having with ourselves. So you
Ourselves,
finishing
yeah.
up your yeah, you finishing up your studies. I'm in practice already. I know you've also been adjacent to practices and
Mhm.
stuff. And I've also, like you've said, recently been in architecture school and I'm going back again soon. So in the past 5 years, 12 months or whatever, and even just piggybacking off of the webinar, what are like some of the tough talks that you are having with yourself? And I mean, this is a back and forth between us. Isn't necessarily an interview, it's a
Yeah.
conversation. So which one comes
Yeah.
first to mind, and why do you
Hmm.
consider it a tough talk?
I think, yeah, uh, picking up from previous discussion that we had as well on well the main tough talks that we having with ourselves as one, and I think it was pressing at the time, when we spoke about it the first time. It was maybe more than 6 months ago, but now it's not. Let me say it's not a like a big tough talk because I think I found the answer. I've got So, but it's still there, which was around the skills that we need when we enter the field, and mostly concerning expectations and softwares and all that knowledge that, let's say, as you're coming out or as an intern, like at TPT, we have those on the third year, we have 18 weeks, or almost like half of or like the whole of the second semester, in which we're doing internships. And there's such a huge
And this
expectation
is
that,
within this is within what
no,
the advanced
the third
diploma.
year, no, that's on your third year, you have like the second semester
But
of your third
but
year,
remember, not not
you're
not
doing an
all
internship.
not all courses are the same. So I want you to be particular in terms of like
Yeah.
the degree that you are doing and
Oh
the
yes.
institution.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's what I'm hinting at.
So under under a diploma of architecture technology at
Yeah,
CPUT in Cape Town,
yeah,
you have the first semester of classes, a studio, and then on the second semester you have, I think it's minimum 18 weeks of internship, of in-service work, integrated learning. And then you just come back to present what you did throughout that second semester at the
sure.
end of the year. So during that period, as I saw a lot of my colleagues struggling to get internships or going for interviews and not securing a position, or even securing an internship and then not a permanent position, which they needed for the following year, because people lacked because there's such a huge expectation that these kids are gonna come out of university now and they are tech savvy, they Revit and Lumion geeks. So there's this expectation that we're gonna come out and we don't understand maybe of technical drawings. They don't do much of those things, but we're supposed to solve or to facilitate that transition for the company to become up to date with the trends of the market. So, and definitely like, and not everyone is at that level. Not all schools have the same level of instruction or guidance for students on those softwares. So people struggle a lot with that. And
Yeah,
personally, I wasn't going through it, but like I could see, and I could share the same sentiment, like for people that were struggling with it, because I'm not so fond of that. Like, I've never been inclined to like mastering any software like or SketchUp or AutoCAD or Revit. Yeah, I would learn the basics just for the sake of the coursework, but I'm not dedicated to that. But I
yeah,
know that I have like other skills that that I can leverage and from and are helpful when I'm in the workplace.
yeah,
So yeah, it was sort of thought back, last year or the year before while I saw other people struggling with it. But at least for me, I knew how to navigate it, like not having those skills, um like how can I compensate for that and how do I navigate being in the workplace without that? But for many other students, interns, graduates, yeah, it's such a conflict such a conflict, like knowing that you are expected to know all the softwares and produce amazing renders. Otherwise, you won't be employed by the biggest names in the market.
but I mean, let me also
Yeah.
play devil's advocate, right? Like,
Mm.
is it is that expectation not justified? Because I mean, where I'm at, and that's just a provocative question. I'm neither here or there
Mm.
about it. But what I want to
That,
say
yeah.
is you are very correct in saying like one tough talk that we can kind of hone in as graduates, students, and young professionals is around the expectations around software skill sets and one being up to date with the latest
Mm.
standards, whether it's Revit or AutoCAD or even SketchUp, right? And the other thing that I've come to understand, especially having been in practice and also starting to understand SACAP registration, registration and professional categories, is that to be
Mm.
honest, bro, as an architectural
Yeah.
technologist, your core
Yeah.
thing is drafting. Like after your undergrad,
That's it.
as far as like
Yeah.
the category of professional you are, like your core thing is drafting.
It's
And
drafting. Yeah.
back in the day, all of that used to happen like analog, right? People would draw,
Mm. Draw.
little
Yeah.
room data sheets, like all of that would be generated in analog ways. But the reality is, like now,
Mm.
most practices are using all these softwares, and ideally, if you're going to be an intern or even an employee in any practice that is working with those
Mm.
softwares,
That
the
is in that
reality
space.
is
Yeah.
you are part of the production line. And not to put it crassly,
Yeah.
but like 80% of graduates become part of the production line, because it's very
Mm.
rare that as a candidate architectural technologist who just graduated and is looking for an internship, you are involved in any design,
That you
because
get a
the
feel.
design
Yeah.
the yes the design so the
It is.
inception, concept, and design development stage of an architectural project, that's where your hand drawing skills come in to play, right? Where the
Come in
sketching
handy.
is
Yeah.
happening and the
Yeah.
ideating is happening. And most graduates and
Yeah.
students fantasize over that and having those roles within practices. And off camera, we were speaking about like,
Yeah.
the like, can an architectural technologist, even a senior architectural technologist, do the stuff that an architect can do in a practice? And the reality is that quote unquote
Mm.
architects within the practice. And I've come to learn also that there's different kinds of architects, bro. Like project architect,
That
design
is.
architect. But anyway, those, like the design architect, more often than not will be the one doing like the sketching, and what you are
Doing
then
the
doing
thinking
is
part.
helping
Yeah.
is helping a practice move from stage 3 down to stage 5,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
Okay.
where
Yeah.
the production of architectural drawings is coming to play. And the reality is,
Yeah. What you're
like the
referring
market,
to. Yeah.
yeah, the market and like scene we in architecturally is such that those softwares play a crucial role in producing the architectural drawings and construction drawings that enable projects to be built. So if you don't equip yourselves with those skills, fortunately and unfortunately, and you are going into a practice that's set up like that. And I think what you are alluding to in terms of leveraging your skills is that you found that in other spaces you're able to leverage those other skills. But I think that tough talk is a real one around, you
Yeah.
know, and also who's responsible for teaching us these softwares,
For
you
that.
know? Is it something, what do
Pretty
you think actually?
good.
Is it something that's supposed to be happening in
That's
architectural school? Is it self-taught? Is it something you need to learn in practice because that's what internships about anyway? Like where you at with
mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of everything. So everyone plays a role in that.
Okay.
So we are def- we are definitely responsible for learning or for diving into these things and yeah, learning by ourselves because even if you learn either if you're learning at uni or at the workplace, without your dedication, it's never gonna happen. Right? That's the
Yeah.
first thing. Now, in terms of balancing the expectation, leveling the playing field, is that practices and universities, like there's still a disconnect. So let's say that from speaking from experience, what we learn or the amount of hours that we had dedicated to learning hand drawings from first, second, and to third year, and which most of the people that come out of CPT are really good at, majority, and the amount of hours that were dedicated to teaching us those softwares properly, not just giving you like a short clip or like an introduction to the program, like yeah, the interface. No, but the amount of hours that were spent or that were dedicated to equipping students with the knowledge necessary for them to know the basics and know how to get take it from there by themselves, it's not realistic. So it doesn't match the expectation that there is in practice, because in practice people believe that, wait, you were at uni for 3 years and you didn't learn this. No, that's not what we were doing from first year. That's not what we
Yeah.
were doing from ECP, from the foundation year. So there's a disconnect on, I'm sending you this students, but this is the amount of hours that we have spent with them teaching them the softwares,
The
and then
software.
you have to pick it up. You have to pick it up from here, and then the practices know,
You
and
know
they
what I
know
just thought
as well
about?
that they have to spend this time. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for cutting you off. Like as you
No,
speaking,
no, no. Go for it
it just
before we
clicked
forget.
that,
Yeah.
and you know how like VA is like a, all of a sudden like, trying to be relevant, and it's good, and it's good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just being a bit,
It's
but I
necessary.
think
Yeah, it was
yeah,
long
yeah, yeah. And
overdue.
they're signing up students and stuff, and but what I what I'm trying to say is I think maybe also going back to the question of who's responsible, and you're correct in saying all of us are,
Hmm.
but I think the other gap that VAs need to look at is that gap, right? Of
Mm,
architectural education and the hours spent with various sort of coursework or outcomes, um, and objectives. Software isn't a priority. So how do VAs in the same structure of CPDs and whatnot, how can their value proposition to students be becoming that bridge of learning the softwares that are necessary
mm,
between your transition from architectural education and into practice? And not only that,
the
if
practice. Yeah.
if it's VAs doing it and architects in practice doing it, then one of the most frustrating things as a student, bro, is spending more time trying to learn Revit or SketchUp than actually doing the design. Like you'll and it's so
That's
frustrating,
it.
bro, because you spend like 5-10 minutes trying to figure out how to draw a column properly or like set up
Yeah.
levels, and time flies. And what I've also learned since I've been in a practice is that how you use Revit in school is very
Mm.
destructive, bro. Like it's you actually not using it the way it's
Huh.
meant to be used.
It's not.
So
Yeah.
what VAs can do with their network that's in architecture and giving these quote unquote CPD, well, they're not CPD talks, but these talks or trainings for the students that are registered under them, is then they can help train them on how to use these softwares efficiently so that they are well equipped for an office environment, right?
Yeah.
Or for a practice. Because I find that
Yeah.
what's always tricky is even if you know Revit, and it's always good. I think what was helpful with me in my case is I had a base of knowing how to use Revit. But once
Mm.
you
Perfect.
inside, you
Yeah.
learn how to actually use it. So I think that's where VAs come in, and we're not going to mention names, but this is free game. If they're listening to this,
Yeah.
they can take that
Mm.
on. But
There
you
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 go.
you you are correct about
Yeah.
the
And
software thing. But you said something.
yeah.
Sorry, you said something interesting that maybe we
Go
can
for it.
pivot to before we go into another
It
part of
is.
the conversation. And it was about you leveraging your other skill sets apart from
Oh, that's clear.
software and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like tell me about that.
Yeah. Before I jump into that, just on what you said about the relation between VAs, like, or that intermediate position, VAs, universities, and practice. the the way that we learn as well the softwares at uni, it's different from from how it's used in different offices as well. So this each office has their own culture, their own practice, their own way of using the softwares. So it's also good to now having this standardized way of learning the software, or like just generic way, but actually engaging with those practices and see how peculiar they are and how differently they do things, and coming like for little workshops and sharing as well, and creating content. Creating, I think that's one of the things that we struggle the most as well. Content, if it's not what's that one, Balkan architect or something, yeah, like if it's not those videos like from
We
people
love
that are
Balkan
not even
architects.
into Africa. No, it's yeah, I think it was actually the only one that people could actually resonate with and say, no, this is actually, yeah, you can actually understand what he's saying, and like you can use practical, like examples that you can relate with.
Yeah. Do you
But
know?
if we
Do you know?
could,
Sorry. Do you know that SketchUp guy? Yeah,
Mhm.
welcome to SketchUp. There's another guy who does SketchUp tutorials. I used to love those as a student. But yeah,
But yeah, I didn't even practice SketchUp, so I wouldn't know. So yeah, but yeah, like this is a good point. Like just creating content, and I think that's also a business opportunity. That's also an area which that people could explore. Creating content that is relevant from students, taking it from practice, different models, different ways that people do things, coming and discussing the same thing in different ways and putting it out there so students and universities and staff or VAs and other practices can also explore, can
yeah.
also experiment and learn from what you're doing, and that would level things. And on now answering on the topic of other
The leverage.
skills,
Quick one. Sorry.
yeah,
Quick one
mhm,
before we close the everything. I also
yeah,
want to say on my end, I found in addition to the YouTube videos, what helped me a lot was also doing so UCT. When you're at UCT, you have access to LinkedIn courses with your UCT email. So I did a lot of like LinkedIn Revit like courses and stuff, and those
focus.
really helped.
Mm,
I think they structure, and this is not a
and
paid promo. It's not a paid promo LinkedIn, but they structure them in such a way that it's methodical, and it's not just about the interface, and it kind of, and what that helped with as well is when I applied at the practice
mm,
and I work at, I was able to say, yo, I might not know how you guys use Revit in the office, but I at least know the basics. And here are
basic,
models that I've,
yeah,
and it's because
yeah,
of the certification that I got from these LinkedIn courses. So I think if anyone has access to LinkedIn through their
yeah,
university email, or
yeah,
if you have the funds to be on there on a paid sort of membership, I think on LinkedIn Learning, do those courses. They'll come in clutch,
yeah,
and not
yeah,
just
true.
as a
I
certification, but also learning.
Yeah.
the thing. And also ask people. I
Yeah.
find like
Mhm.
it's not helpful to sit with yourself and struggle to model a wall for hours and not finish, bro. Like find someone in your class, and this is for the students, who knows the thing and ask them. But anyway, leveraging other skills.
Yeah, and just also it'll save you a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
like
no,
cuts
that's
that
and
down to 2 minutes.
I endorse LinkedIn Learning as well because we gladly also had access to it through our student emails. Probably there's universities in the country that don't have, or other private institutions that don't give that access to students. But it is a great tool, and there's great resources there. And yeah, so then just going back to the skills. Oh, it's also part of the answer to if those expectations are not fair and they know if they shouldn't
Not
be
fair.
there and all that. So yeah, no, I'm saying it's part of that answer. Like, if what is the role of the universities and practice on setting those expectations on students that are coming out? Is that I think it starts like with our education models as well, because no one respects the fact that people are indeed different. Despite the fact that we have interest in studying architecture, it doesn't mean that we're going to practice it in a similar way. It doesn't mean that our backgrounds now are going to merge and we're going to communicate the same way in architecture.
Yeah,
This is one of the most precious lessons that I learned. I think this was probably my first or second year. And I don't remember, but I must give the credits to, yeah, I don't remember the name, but it was probably on a video, probably
nice.
not sure if it was a TED talk or a guest or a lecture or something on YouTube. And this guy said that it's important to understand that people communicate differently in architecture. And the first
Yeah,
thing that you need to learn when you walk into the studio is that what is your main medium of communication in architecture? I had friends that were amazing at building models, and that was their thing. Had friends that were great in Revit, all softwares, like you put anything in front of them and they just learn it so quickly and they master that. There's others that are great in sketching, and there's ones that are like sketching like technical drawings or artistic drawings or design thinking. There's others that are great in like verbal communication, like presentations, juries,
yeah,
and problem solving. Like, so we need to respect that.
yeah,
And this is
yeah.
not just about the architectural field, that's probably goes beyond and extends to the whole education models that we have. But if we don't respect that in the one of the most creative courses out there, basically, if you could say so, then it's never gonna work.
Yeah.
Because if
What
you walk into the studio, yeah, and you're not told that, like you're not told that it is all right for you not to be great in something, just maximize or focus on building up on what you know that you're good at. And your least favorite thing, my thing is like building models. Like I know I don't like that. It takes me a lot of time. But I knew like, okay,
that's
I at
funny.
least I know where my strength is and I also know where my weaknesses are. So I build them up
Yeah.
and and yeah, and I work from that. So this is what gave me that, like when I understood that, I'm like, okay, what's my strength? Like
What what
so
what you're saying
and
is so true, bro. Because
mm,
in and maybe it answers partly and largely the overarching question of like what the point
mm,
is of architecture school. And I guess it's to not narrow you down into a specific way of communicating and expressing yourself. Because if I
mm,
guess more hours are spent on you knowing a certain software so that you can contribute towards the production line of a practice, then it's kind of defeated the purpose of what architectural education is. And maybe
mm,
that's why not much emphasis is put on necessarily which medium you should know. It's just that when you transition, unfortunately, from you know, academia into practice, the expectation from most practices is for you to know the software. So maybe the conversation is also,
mm.
are there not enough practices that are practicing in these other modes in South Africa, or do we not know about
That's a
them?
great
So
question.
if
Yeah.
you are a student and you find that you are gravitating to a specific way of practicing, maybe it's about aligning yourself to those kind of practices so that you don't feel stifled or dumb or whatever when you find a practice that practices in a specific way and puts emphasis on software and production. And then you feel like, oh damn, the 3 years or 4 years of my architectural education was a waste of time.
True. Yeah.
um
True.
so yeah, but let's wrap up this software
That's a great
conversation.
point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I think we at the end of it, and we can jump into your tough talk. And but yeah, that's what I meant. And I think walking into the workspace, because I started working during my second year. Then when
sure.
we got into the third year, when we were supposed to do the internships like for the semester, I was like I was working while I was studying, like from the first semester. So and my work was like my inclination, like or my responsibility at the office was more inclined into research. And I'm like, yeah, this like I know this is me. Like I can resonate with that. I'm like, no, I want to,
Yeah,
and I asked. And you need to be able to negotiate as well to say like, no, this is actually what I'm good at, and this is what I would like to learn. And this is how I enter. I said,
yeah,
I can work on this and I'll deliver results as any professional that you have here for the next 2 3 years, or yeah, for the past 2 or 3 years. And this is what I actually want to learn. I want you to give me some work on Revit, take me to site because this is what I'm not good at.
yeah,
So the negotiation as well was, yeah, because I knew. So I could speak confidently and say, no, I can do this and this, we can work on it. So if you're an architecture student and you have a passion or thing for photography, come on, enter into the space, like this is what you want to learn. And like, these are the other services that I can offer the company. Like, our finished builds, let's go and now do the photography. Like, let's build up like our brand. Let's do the marketing. Let's work because it's a whole ecosystem. Maybe in a more corporate kind of practice, yeah, or setup, it will be a little bit challenging because you're being hired for that specific position. But where there's
yeah,
flexibility, which is the majority of the small practices that take in interns, you need to speak up, but you won't if you weren't told that you could do so.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's
Now,
on the dot, bro.
yeah. Should we now jump into your tough talk?
Yeah, I mean, I have a
Tell me
lot,
to
bro.
talk.
I have a lot of tough talks. I have a lot of tough conversations with myself and my
Yeah.
friends. But I think the one that comes top of mind is definitely earnings. We'll speak about that now. The
Okay.
other one that comes to mind would be like, and maybe let's start with this one because it's directly tied to skill sets. Like, I'm at a point where my parents um sent me to architecture school to come back
Mm-hmm.
and make homes for these people. Do you get me? And I've studied, I've been capped, and I've graded, and it's so absurd to me that, to be frank, I still can't design a house. Like, I actually still, with the 4 years of education, and I'm not expecting myself to do so,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's a provocation and a challenge to myself of thinking, what have I been doing these past 4 years? Cool, I've been expanding my mind. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, I'm able to
But wait,
think and really,
what do you mean? Yeah.
and
What
I'll
do you mean
explain it just
exactly
now.
by you can't design a house? Yeah,
Precisely that, at a space
yeah. Mhm.
making level, right? Of getting a brief that
Okay.
says you've got a 4 room house. So I'll make, so part of what I'm trying to do is help my grandmother come up with a brief that she'll take to a professional registered architect to kind of take on that project forward. So I'm kind of doing like the conceptual
Mhm.
stuff, but it's a 4 room house in Soweto. It needs to be extended, so phasing is involved, and all of this is coming because I'm
Mhm.
I'm in practice now. But phasing is involved,
Yeah.
and demolition and whatever. But I've the past few days. I've been looking at that plan and trying to come up with a scheme, right? Both conceptually, but also from
Mm.
making the spaces work. And I'm
Technical,
realizing
yeah.
that I actually can't. I mean, I can, right? The diagrams are there, you're drawing, but
Mm.
they like it's taking me longer than I think it should to get to that
Mm.
sweet spot of understanding placemaking, program, like as far as like an
Mhm.
architectural plan is concerned in a section, and even just the form of the building. I guess
Yeah.
for me it's and maybe
Okay.
people in the chat can speak about this, because I've also come to realize that although we design in architecture school in terms of the briefs and whatnot, once you're in practice and you also start designing outside of the open-endedness of the briefs in school, you realize that there's so much you don't know. Um, so for me, it's like, why should it take that long for me to be able to do this thing? And I don't know, maybe I'm the one who can't design, but I'd like to think that's not the case. I mean, you should try
That's
too. I
on
think
you.
try it too.
Yeah.
Take your home, try and redesign it and come up with that, like, and give yourself, I don't know, a week or two, and see how successful you are in doing that. And for me, I guess the tough talk, or the conversation I'm having with myself is, that's kind of the measure for me. Like, if I
Mm.
can't, if I'm graduating and I still can't like do a simple like extension and reno project, then something was wrong. There's something I didn't get in my architectural education to equip me with that. But funny enough, I had a conversation
Yeah.
with a colleague,
Um.
bro, and
Yeah.
in just 5 minutes, I was able to understand what I need to do with with that design and concept stage project to help myself get it where it needed to be. So the point I guess I'm trying to make also is, what I'm learning in practice
Mm.
and through practicing colleagues, like, triumphs 3 years of my architectural education.
Your
And
three
I
years.
came into architecture wanting to make things and build things.
Yeah.
And I got just like a tiny like tips of it, but from people outside of academia, like, they helping me like slash that in a matter of
Yeah.
minutes. And I was painting that
Yeah. I
picture
wanna.
to kind of
Yeah.
to paint the picture
Mm-hmm.
of what it's like trying to design without, the
And to
input
actually
of
build
people in
something.
practice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I want to talk about that, like the difference of what we learn, like in the like peer learning, like from other colleagues in the studio or from lecturers or and yeah, from practice. But I think there's an interesting point here when because when you put it this way of like not being able to design like or to create the spaces, there's also I think there's also a difference, and I think that's the distinction that you're making between drawing a square and saying this is a room and yeah this is a living room and then an extension and
You
actually like
understood what I meant.
putting something on paper that is actually like that you know why you're putting it there, why you're configuring that in that manner, in that proportion. So I think you're talking about that level of consciousness of that happens like when you're designing, when you defining spaces, not just putting a box. Because I think a lot of people would be able to like to do that even without architectural training to say yeah this is where I want this is what I want, this is what I'm but I feel please tell me if I'm wrong, but are you talking about that other level of consciousness that like that is like that other layer, like okay you're looking, you drew it, but you're like no there's more to it, is that what you're talking about? Or just
Yeah,
because I don't believe you're
yeah,
telling me that you just
yeah.
can't draw a square and say this is a room.
Bro, I'm talking about that other level, like,
Okay, okay,
down
okay.
to like
Yeah.
ergonomics, down to working with the constraints of
Mm.
budget, down to like understanding like your materiality and
Yeah.
tectonic assembly. Like, I'm talking about that
Mhm.
next.
Yeah,
level
yeah.
to come
Okay.
up with three schemes that are configured differently and understand why the other one works and the other one doesn't at an
Yeah.
experiential level, but also at a
Hmm.
buildability level and at a budget level.
Yeah.
Because I
Because
mean,
I think that's what
like you correctly
I
pointing
was
out,
just.
anyone
Hmm.
and ourselves can draw
Yeah.
squares and put
Yeah,
openings.
too.
You know, it's an
And
easy
even people
exercise.
like that's the phenomenon that we have as well of self builds, right? People without architectural training are out there as contractors, and they will draw plans for people and get them approved in whatever manners or schemes that they have. But I think this is what differentiates someone that has architectural training from someone who doesn't and is doing
Yeah,
things empirically. So I get it. I get it
yeah.
now. It's
And I
just
mean,
saying
the
like,
other
yeah,
guy,
there's actually more to it.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean the other guy who a few years ago extended my other grandmother's house. That guy would have probably done
Hmm.
a better job than me. And for me, that's where the problem lies in and I mean the conversation fundamentally is experience, right? They've done it enough to understand
Hmm.
what works and what doesn't. And what I'm asking myself is, even with that 4 years of education, I still can't, like, and that's what I'm striving for, of
Think at
like
that
understanding
level.
space
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
level where I know
Yeah.
what I'm doing, and even probably understand that, okay, I probably don't even need a corridor here, because there's like some,
Mm.
like, but we'll get too technical, but I'm glad you understand what I mean. But that's kind of
Okay.
the one conversation. And I mean, tied to that,
No.
right? Let's amplify it even further. And I always have this conversation. I
Yeah.
used to have this conversation a lot in school with my friends, similar to what I just said now. But it's, for me, it's also so crazy that you've got so many, and there is an answer to this question, but there's so many master's graduates and master's thesis. Like, let's just take last year alone nationally, and not even one
Mm.
is gonna be built. Like, that's, I think we need to interrogate that, bro. Like, why, bro? Okay, sharp. 2 years, 3 years, four. Do you know how much
Mm.
IP is sitting in these institutions, bro? And some projects like are very buildable, and there's a lot of reasons why
Yeah.
they
Mm.
aren't. But it's like, as an idea and as a provocation and as a tough talk with myself, but also like my peers. It's like, and it's part of why I'm so like, and you were you said, what do you mean you recently graduated? You graduated a long time ago. And part of why, like,
Yeah.
I'm quote unquote taking my time is I've got this ambition of, my master's thesis needs to be built, bro. Like, Francis Gehry,
Yeah.
literally, the Gando school, which was, I think, his debut project, if I'm not
Mm.
mistaken, was his master's thesis,
Yeah.
and that got built. And but you do see how that conversation at candidate architect level and at candidate architectural technologist level is still the same. It's like, as a candidate architectural technologist, like, why am I not equipped enough to do this, like, little house project, right? But also at
Mm.
candidate architect level, why am I seemingly not equipped enough to, like, deliver this project? And I'm using Francis Carey as a case in point, but that comes from one of my lecturers, Nick Kutsia. Love that gent to bits. One of the best advice I've ever gotten from a lecturer was make things. And I'm so obsessed with making things. So it
Mm.
absolutely frustrates me when I realize I'm further away
That becomes
from
it.
making
Yeah.
things, but yeah, man. So it's
Yeah. No,
that.
that's I think this is a whole like 1 hour conversation that you're opening up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
But I think,
because it expands. I think we had conversations. Like I'm very much involved in the urban design space as well, and yeah, just attending certain like presentation, like end of year reviews of master thesis in urban design. The conversation was the same. Like, yeah, but what happens to those projects? Like, we have all those brilliant ideas, but
bruh,
then it just vanishes, just dies there, it doesn't get anywhere. But going back to the point of being able to make things, as the term, as the name, as the title of an architect by the origin of the word actually means, like a master builder, like someone that actually get things done, like that is equipped in different disciplines, different qualities, different skills to be able to think, design, uh, and assemble, like
Make.
erect
Yeah.
things, like instruct people to build as well, to guide the building process. But why are we not at that stage? Like, are we preparing people for that? I don't think so. I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Yeah. And I think
I think
there is a
we're very
reality.
far from that.
Yeah, and there is a reality, I think, and a future where the time it takes to get to that level can be shortened. And I think that's
Hmm.
in the spirit of Project Y and being provocative and challenging the
Yeah.
status quo. I think that's one of the things we need to aspire to. But the other tough talk we always speak about is earnings, right? But I think the
Hmm.
venting happened in the webinar. So if you want to hear us venting about earnings, you can watch the
Yeah.
webinar. But I wanted us to in this platform
There's a lot of
more so
stuff,
speak
yeah,
about
around that.
the solution aspect of it. Tell
Hmm.
me, tell me, tell
Other
me,
things, yeah.
as an architecture student who has creative problem solving, design, and architectural skills, how did you first make your money as an architecture student? Please, like, share that and let's speak about that for a bit. But the tough talk that we're
Hmm.
kind of addressing here is around earnings, low earnings for interns. You can throw in there
Yeah.
how expensive architecture school is, but let's just speak about like our first moments in accessing money using
Yeah.
some of the skills that we learned through
Production
architecture.
skills.
Yeah. Do you
Okay,
remember the first
that's
bag you
that's
got
a very good point. Yeah. That's a very good point.
and
I
how much
think on
was it?
my case
I'm
with
kidding.
I'll tell you. But I think on my
Yeah,
case, like
I'm
from
glad. Okay,
the
perfect.
architecture
You see.
skills,
This is exactly
like
this. Sorry, this is exactly why I
you
like it.
say?
Please mention how much it is. I'll also mention how much it is.
Yeah.
I think we also need to be transparent about such things. But yeah,
We no, I'm gonna share as it was, because I think that's also very important. Like people need to know like what you've been doing and how much you can get paid for that.
sure.
And so I was gonna say, like with like skills that I learned at architecture school. Yeah, that's like something very specific. And again, I mentioned that even through architecture school, I was never passionate for software, and that also implies Adobe suite, like Photoshop and other things. I'm like not even editing images and videos, and like not even these things. I'm like that's not my thing. I'm not interested in that. Like yeah, but I know like when I need, I can always go to someone that is actually that's actually his thing. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna put myself in that position. Yeah, I can learn the basics, but not to master it, and eventually, like for in my case, not with interest as well of profiting from that. Just like basics that I need for my own work.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing that I got like as an architect was actually that first job, which I got while I was doing my second year.
Yeah.
And it was like the first contract was as for a research project.
Okay. Nice.
So
Do you recall how
it
you
was
got that?
yeah, so during my second year, I had failed, like there was this year in which I had failed one subject, which was technology, like architectural technology. And then I had to repeat that subject in, I think that was 2021, twenty
Mm.
twenty two. I had to repeat that subject. So that was the only subject that I was doing. And I had a bit of free time, if I could say. I had other things going on, but at least from architecture school was a little bit more free. And yeah, I was just doing small courses and attending events, and then I came across this like this webinar when where they spoke about this company, and then a couple of weeks later saw that they were like having a recruitment day and apply for that. So I went for that interview, and that was at Bitprop. They do backyard rentals in the Cape Flats. And when I walked into that space, like I'm still in my second year, there were people that were graduates from all the universities in the Cape, all the institutes in the Cape, like all of them. And 1, 2 years out, we were going for that same position as like architectural intern, and I'm a second year student.
Yeah.
And I think we're probably like maybe 30 people that were applying for that one. There's like the whole recruitment, they had more than 100 people because there are like lots of positions. But just for the architectural intern, more than 30 or 40 people applying for that. And I got the job for various reasons: interpersonal skills, the way I conducted myself or carry myself as well, surely. And I think the prospect as well of being able to negotiate, yeah, to say, yeah, this is what I can offer and this is what I want to learn, as I mentioned first. So, and I started working, like the first project was like, okay, so since this is your skill set, this is your expertise. So let's start with a research project, and was looking into new areas where Bitprop could build or could
Yeah.
expand to.
Yeah. Okay.
And
So so
that
so
was
so
like yeah, easy to navigate.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the first one was an architectural internship appointment. What was your second bag?
Yeah. I think
What was the
from
next
that,
thing
but
you? Yeah.
yeah, I
I'm trying to
wouldn't
get
say
us to
it's
mention
from
all of them.
architecture, like from architecture school. I don't think other skills, but
It does not need to. It does not need. Oh,
consult.
sorry. Yeah, it does not. Sorry. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be necessarily anything you kind of directly got from architecture school. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
as a while you were in architecture school, like what are these other ways that you were kind of making money through skills maybe you might have just always had or learned in other and developed in other places.
Hmm. I
Or do you want me to?
believe then
Do you want
on,
me to speak?
yeah.
Okay, I'll go. I'll go. I'll go. So I mean, on my
Yeah,
end,
you go. Very
one
good.
the first bag I got, and our stories are similar in the sense that, and maybe we should also do an episode on failure and what that means in the world of architecture. Architecture school, it would probably also be dope to have a professional in that. But anyway, on my end, this is like third year, and I always call it my first third year because
Yeah.
although UCT has a 3 year undergrad program, I did it in 4 years, and the reason is, long story short,
Right.
I lost my laptop on campus. Um, and then
Right.
other things
Okay.
also happened. Other things also
Yeah.
happened, and then I was like, okay, I'll do my work from like the CAD labs, and this is like Octoberish, and like it's locking in season. But long story short, I lose my laptop, and then after some time, I get tired of working on campus because I was so used to working on my laptop, and then I get like
Mm,
so demotivated, and I'm like, you know what, I might not be able to finish this actually. And my lecturers, like
mm.
one of my lecturers, sat me down and she was like, you need to finish this degree. I don't want to see you here next year. But anyway, long story short, I
Which
decide,
year?
okay, cool.
Which year was that? Your second or third year?
This is third year. This is third year. My first third year. Because then what I end up doing is I'm like, you know what? I'll
Okay.
finish all the other courses like history and theory of architecture, management practice law, and I'll just do studio and technology in the following year. And had done work. I'd
Mm,
had done work, but it's that architecture student trap where you constantly want to improve your project, but you don't finish it, and then you want to finish it
indeed.
at the end of the year.
Indeed.
So towards that end of the year, I was realizing, flip,
Perfection.
I won't be able to finish these projects. So then, while I was in that like turmoil of, do I lock in for this last stretch, or do I defer studio and technology for the next year? I ended
Mm.
up seeing a post from the Harding Institute for Architecture, and they were looking for a graphic designer. And by then, I had also
Oh,
been doing like
okay.
posters. So this is where Photoshop comes in,
Yeah.
the one that you hate,
Okay. Okay.
um,
Okay. Sorry.
and Illustrator. But anyway, I see that
Okay. I
vacancy
remember that.
exactly. I'm
Yeah.
like, yo, let me apply. I apply. I get it.
Mm.
After getting it,
Okay.
um,
Nice.
I and mind you, I've lost my laptop, so I need money to buy a new laptop. So that's what I'm also thinking. Did an interview, sent them my portfolio. and I can break this down in another thing, like where I can explain
Mm, another,
how
yeah.
also like the universe
Really.
keeps a score. Yeah, yeah, and like it's not a coincidence that at that moment that happened. But anyway, I do
Mm.
this gig for them, and this was purely just graphic design and branding. You can check that on my LinkedIn. And
Uh,
at the
I
time,
remember
I
that.
think
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, I think that was also like the first time I had to learn how to invoice, which is another absurd thing. I'm like, why am I learning so late how to
That's a
invoice
very good
people?
point. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to go to one of my lectures and be like, "Yo, I've got this thing that I need to do for, how do I invoice? How do I, how do I?" But anyway, figured it out, and I think at the time, it must have been like 10K, which for a first appointment at the time I was like, "Oh, this is a
Mm.
bag." But obviously yesterday's price is now not today's price. So if I'm doing any branding work, it's probably not going to cost that
Right.
much. But it was a good bag. It included an annual report, some logo touch ups, a banner. Like it included quite a lot, and that was a good bag at the time. So I mean, just as a thing about exploring alternatives of earning as a student, maybe even as a professional, it's like the graphic design and brand identity sort of
Mm.
stream, um, and that can be another way of getting yourself to have income. I remember actually prior to that, one of my close friends. He likes being low key, so I won't mention him. But I think the graphic designer thing like it got dropped off of
But I
him to
can,
me. But he
yeah,
got a graphic design thing that he needed to do, and he couldn't do it. So then he asked me to do it,
they pass it
and
on
then
to
he
you.
paid me a good portion of that split. So shout out to him for that. He knows himself. But
Okay,
yeah, so for
nice,
me,
right. That's
graphic
the kind
design
of
and
culture
brand
we need, right?
identity,
Yeah.
we do. I'm probably gonna start a practice
Yeah.
with that guy one day. But graphic design and brand identity was my way of like alternative
Mm.
earning. And then over time, you start doing like models and stuff. One of my friends had access to a 3D printer as well. There's a time where a previous
Mhm.
lecturer of mine connected me with a student. I think they studied in Germany, if I'm not mistaken, and they happened to be in Cape Town. And they needed a model just before they went back for architecture school in January. And then I 3D
Okay.
printed it for them and they paid me. So model making is
Oh, that's
another
nice. So
alternative for earning.
you have been very resourceful, man, eh?
Yeah, you gotta be, bro. When you're from Joburg, you gotta be. I don't know. Do you
Of
remember other
course.
bags that you would have that you got while still in architecture school?
Not definitely not from architecture.
No, no, no. I mean, mine are also not directly from
Yeah.
architecture. They're just adjacent to it. But
Yeah,
anything
because
that
I'm
relates
thinking
to
like
maybe space
something,
and create,
yeah, fully relatable. Yeah, and I think like cause after that it was just but like a lot of like research based like kind
research.
of
Okay,
work like
got
as a
you.
project, yeah, project assistant and jumping in
Mm,
assisting people like with different research projects. Yeah, that so because I mentioned like that's my space. This is something that I feel comfortable with, and it doesn't
yeah,
need the same tech savviness as you may have like with other softwares. So that's yeah, that has been my space, and then eventually started like having the opportunity as well of being connected, being well connected to the point of like someone giving you a space in a consultancy work or something like that, and jumping
nice,
in as a project assistant. Yeah, and being in other spaces that are like fully like non-architectural, but just that capacity of being like critical thinking, problem solving, those interpersonal skills as well, though yeah, those are the skills that are difficult to measure, to quantify, but they're out there that we do get in architecture school. But yeah, like you don't know how to market those services most of the
yeah,
time. Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, most of the time that's the space. That's why people approach me for those. Yeah,
Nice, nice. I just remembered
yeah,
another bag. I see we're closing in on an like hour, so we'll close it soon. But I just remembered another bag. The other bag was, and when I'm
pretty
saying bag, when
resourceful,
people say
man.
I got a
That's right.
bag, it sounds like a large sum
Yeah,
of money. Trust me, it wasn't a lot.
yeah.
But the other bag I got
But,
was when,
mm.
and shout out to another friend of mine. You know yourself. I won't. I'm only gonna name drop
Maybe
throughout
they're
this
not
podcast.
comfortable. You never know,
Yeah,
right?
I'm gonna
If
name
they
drop.
want,
I'm
if
probably
they
gonna
want
name
to
drop.
be, yeah,
Yeah, I'm saying I'm only gonna name
yeah,
drop mentors. but like friends I won't.
Yeah.
But they know themselves. But there's a architect that needed to measure an apartment in Sea Point, and he couldn't do it at the
Mm.
time, and then he linked me up with again. You see, that's the other thing. This is totally unrelated to today's topic, but bro, architecture, this industry is a people thing, bro. And you and I
It
understand that.
is uh,
But anyway,
most
conversation for another
definitely.
day. Anyway, he linked
For
me up.
another day.
He linked me up with the guy, and then I helped him measure. He was doing like an as built that he was gonna send to like the
Mm.
actual architects who were gonna renovate. I think it was interior architects actually who were gonna do a renovation for that house. But I was helping him measure that. Like I was just there with like, what's that thing, laser. I forgot what it's called, but it's the laser measuring thing. And I brought a measuring tape.
Yeah,
I thought
let
we were
me
just
think.
gonna,
Yeah.
with a measuring tape, but we had that laser measuring thing.
Measuring tape.
And yeah, and he paid
Measuring
me for that.
laser.
It wasn't a lot, but it was still money I didn't have.
That's significant because
So
you did the work. Yeah.
yeah, there's a couple of ways. There's a couple of ways, and I think I'd encourage people to explore them. And I think in the comments also, let's discuss what some other ways
Mm.
are.
Other alternatives,
Um,
other business models that people
it,
have set up. Yeah.
I've got friends who have fashion brands.
Yeah.
I've got friends who
Mm.
DJ also on the side and mix that with like, because at the core of it, architectural education, for me, as far as how I understand it and what it's done for me, is it's expanded my mind, bro, and helped me
Yeah.
connect dots that I would have otherwise not been able to do. So at its core, it's creative problem solving. And I think any
Yeah.
business or any creative endeavor, if you can apply that kind of thinking into executing whatever you're doing, even if it's being a visual artist. I've got a friend who his bag is his art,
Yeah.
and in
Yeah.
conversations with him,
And
he's
that's
told
what we
me a
mentioned as
couple of
well about
times,
the like about the photography thing. Like many of us, like in our first, second years, we go out to sketch like in the street or take photos of buildings and then come back and sketch. And there's people that like became actual photographers, set up their businesses from that. So
yeah,
that's an avenue as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of alternatives that everyone
Mm.
can tap into that
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
adjacent to architecture in one way or
Yeah.
another. But I think
Mm.
it in the
Yeah.
spirit of community, if you've gotten to this part of the video, shout out to you. But also let us
Yeah.
know if there are any tough talks that you're having, with yourself, or
Mm.
something that you've kind of always wondered, like why or how, as a question. So let
Yeah.
us know in the comments, and let's discuss it.
Yeah. So, but I think with that as well, we like basically could circle back on where we started, which was understanding why we're having those conversations as well. Why do we need to have this dialogues? Because if we don't have the spaces, then we can't advance, we can't have this knowledge sharing or openness as well,
Yeah,
to share those experiences, plug each other, and allow people to have the opportunities that we didn't have, and perhaps tap into spaces that we didn't tap, and reach other levels as well, which is at the end of the day a benefit for us as well.
for sure.
So yeah, and sharing the little that we have done, the places, the things, the people that we have access to, and that's the point of those conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's what it's about. But yeah, yeah,
Yes.
catch us on the next one. I don't know if it's too early yet to say people should subscribe, but I mean, if you like the content, do subscribe and
Let
engage
us
with it.
decide. Yeah.
Like, comment, that whole thingamabob, and let's engage. If you want to be a guest on the show, let us know. If you have anyone you'd like us to have on the show, let us know. But we're trying out this online format because we're in two different cities now, and hopefully
Yep.
it works. And yeah, let us
Good
know if
work.
there's
Good
anything we
work.
can improve
Yeah.
on and work on. But
Yeah.
yeah, like you've correctly said, man, this is about solutions and impact, like impact,
Most
and
definitely.
linking each other as young professionals for sure and graduates for sure.
Most definitely. Yeah. Awesome.
But yeah,
So
cheers. I
that's
didn't
it
see
from
you
us.
take out your water.
Yeah. Yeah, cheers, man.
Oh man, that's a good episode, bro. That's a
Indeed,
good
they
episode.
did you start recording? It's still
I'm
recording.
gonna. I didn't. I haven't. I haven't. But let me stop. I'm also gonna, because it's long. It might take a long
Yeah.
time to export, so I mustn't f
Yeah,
around.
so we must stay here